breath, feel your feet on the floor, your bum in your seat, and the breath in your lungs. Welcome to Storytime. One of the most important practices in my yoga living is honoring what is real, what is in this moment, what is now. And so in the last literally 15 to 30 seconds, I set aside my intended story for today's broadcast. And I want to instead share what's most prevalent in my heart and my mind. And maybe, just maybe, this is what we need to hear today, right? I just got off a Zoom call with over 50 amazing, beautiful human beings. And they invited me to join their group to share with them my life's work, literally share with them who I am and how I came to be here and what my dharma, my purpose, and my mission for the studio is. But as this unfolded over the last few weeks, I literally got the initial invitation via a voicemail while I was leading this year's vision board workshop. So that was Saturday and I was full on booked. So I didn't actually have the conversation with the organizer until the following Monday. But just getting that invitation that they had looked at what I'm offering in the world, they'd gone to my website, and not only were they inviting me to share and to contribute, they were excited about what was already known to them about who I am in the world. And there's something that is obviously so encouraging about having that kind of unsolicited feedback, but also affirming when they can reflect back to you the intention of what you're trying to communicate. So literally, I just got off the Zoom conversation with them and sharing with them the 4 secrets of inspired living and sharing the 10 practices to cultivate joy. But along the way, I also was telling them the story of how I came to be here. So I thought this might be worthwhile because retelling our stories is one of the ways in which we can rekindle the spark of our own passion, our own remembering of what matters most. So, where did this all begin? Well, I was raised in a home that encouraged question asking, right? Inquiry, being willing to say, why is that? What is that? Do we have to do that? Now, that doesn't mean that I was always given an answer, found an answer, or was even really had adults who delighted in my questioning. But the primary adults in my life did. They encouraged my inquiry. They encouraged my inquisitiveness. And even as one of 7 children, I was allowed a lot of freedom to engage in the world by my own volition. And I know that that set the foundation not only for my academic career, but also for what I now see as the yogic way of living, meaning ask the questions and then be in that inquiry, be in the process. It's not always about having or finding the answer. Now, about this time, I came to the realization that I wanted to grow up and be the first female married Catholic priest. Well, I guess I would say I came to that idea because obviously I wasn't aware that I could change my gender, right? But I wanted to be married. I felt like that was a big part of who I was going to be in partnership with someone, even at about the age of 8 or 9. But I also recognized that my priest, being part of the Catholic faith, often seemed to be disconnected from the burdens and the responsibilities of everyday life, and particularly everyday life in family. So I really felt strongly about having this concept come into that leadership, teaching, and inspiring position of being that of a parish pastor. Now, By the time I got to college and was pursuing this education, which at that point was really along the way of education, I decided to move into higher education. In fact, this career goal shifted to be a president of a university. So with my degree, I worked in higher education and supported students in the university setting, creating safe spaces for them to ask the questions. In other words, my job in student services was not only in the residential community, but I also taught leadership and peer counseling, really, for the students of my school, in which case I was giving them the practical skills on how to live life in this inquiry while discovering who they wanted to be as adults. At some point, about 10 years into higher education, I kind of took pause and looked around and realized that although my career was advancing and I was doing really good work that I was proud of, my mentors were miserable, unhappily single, unhappily married, overworked, underpaid, for sure underappreciated, and yet kind of on a rat race, a wheel of things never changing. Now, we did find some respite in the summer break, but even today, that summer break has shrunk with the way education has now become a full year endeavor. So I decided to move on. I left education and went over to the corporate side of the street, still working in training and development. And again, I worked about 10 years in training and development and designed programs for leadership, for management, as well as how do we get along? How do we do the things that we need each other to do in a way that is collaborative? It was at this time as well that I earned my doctorate in management and organizational leadership specifically. And that degree was designed to not only help me kind of shine my own buttons, so to speak, in the terms of earning that next layer of professional credentialing, it was also designed to help me bring people together in collaboration. What I didn't know is that when my company was bought out by another, they had no intention of keeping a professional educator on their staff. They wanted to outsource their training and their human resource development. In other words, they were moving in a direction that was very different than what my intention was of bringing community together and looking to cultivate collaboration within the team. So we parted ways. And this is where I was full-fledged into raising a family. In fact, I was pregnant with my second child. My husband was soon to be at home to take care of those kids. And so I started my own independent business, working from home and around the kids. And again, I worked in that business for about 10 to 12 years until life threw me a curveball. That curveball was a bicycle accident. Now, I rode my bike cross country for 3,000, 3,500 miles, something like that, in 3 months. Maybe it was even as many as 5,000. I honestly can't remember. I need to look at my photo album to remember for sure. But I was celebrating 10 years since that bike ride, and I had an accident that knocked me on my ass, knocked me on my head, legitimately, in which case I was bedridden in the recovery of a dislocated shoulder and a concussion. And about a year later, I was freed from the neurologist. I was freed from my PT doctors to resume living. And that was when my friend introduced me to yoga. When I walked into that first yoga studio, I had no idea what to expect, but I felt safe because my friend had brought me. She invited me. She even paid for the class. And she said, just come, just do the class and see what happens. I still didn't have full weight bearing access to my shoulder. I still couldn't walk a straight line, even sober, because the equilibrium in my ears and my balance, the vertigo, was still kind of present in my head post-concussion. But it was the first place that I believe in my entire life that I felt I was enough just as I was. And that was saying something because I was pretty broken and I didn't know anything. I didn't have any answers about what yoga was, but I knew how to ask questions and I was remembering how to be in my body. The teacher specifically said we didn't have to do anything other than just breathe. And that became the foundation, which now, 15 some odd years later, is the principle of everything that I do. Just breathe, and to breathe deeply. In fact, breathing is the first of the 4 secrets of inspired living. The quality of that breath, learning to be enough in that breath, is the root of our yoga practice. Now, in learning how to breathe, yoga saved my life. Well, the helmet that I was wearing during the bicycle accident, that saved my life. But yoga taught me how to live my life. Yes, by breathing, by moving, and by resting. See, I already had a really strong discipline for working, for moving, for being engaged. In fact, that was the reason why this year of bed rest was so challenging and difficult, because I couldn't make a decision. I couldn't read a book. I couldn't even listen to the sounds of my kids' playful squeals and laughter. It was like a knife being shoved into my ear, right? So in that time frame, there was nothing new coming in. And I learned just how unsafe of a space this intellectual mind was. Now I recognize that the reason that my mind was so unsafe was because I had not yet learned how to reconnect to my heart and my belly, my intuition. And that's where yoga really became powerful. So within a year, I became a full-time yoga teacher after completing my teacher training, which when I started my training, I told the school, I said, look, I'm not going to be a yoga teacher. I just need to get well enough to go back to the life that I had before. But I did that, and I rebuilt everything that I had with my home-based business. And I got to the top of that mountain, and I looked around and I said, I don't think I want to be here anymore. And the truth of it is, this business being a presentation, a makeup and cosmetic and skincare business, part of my recovery meant that my hair, the dyed colored hair of my professional appearance, had grown out. I'd stopped putting on makeup because I was in bed most of the day. Well, other than a few weddings since that time, I don't wear makeup, and I haven't colored my hair. And partly as a way of reminding myself and being authentic with others that this is who I am. This is my authentic self. That's not saying that makeup is bad. That's not saying that hair color is bad. It just, for me, meant that this was another way I can put into practice the authenticity and the respect and love for myself just as I am, practicing and prioritizing self-care, accepting my responsibility for how I show up and where I show up, and being accountable to show up, meaning I got to make sure I get enough sleep so that when I arrive for work, I'm ready. That's the second secret, is prioritizing self-care. The third is to practice gratitude. When I wake up first thing in the morning, I write down 3 things in my journal. But even more important than that formal journal is when life throws me a curveball, I reframe as quickly as possible from love to say, what is the opportunity here? What is the question within this circumstance? And can I be with it? So way back, I learned to ask questions, and that's a root in my practice of living well today. But it's in that abundance of questions that I also started to cultivate the abundance of perspectives, meaning there's not just one way. It's not all or nothing. It's riding the wave. It's being in the middle more than we're being in the edges. Right? We talk about those edges a lot in our yoga practice. So here I am as a full-time professional yoga instructor, leading yoga therapy, teaching yoga teachers, and hopefully offering opportunities for inspiration to take into your everyday life. And that's where the practice becomes the way, right? The practice is the path. The secrets are just remembering why, the values, the core. So the 10 practices are to cultivate gratitude, to move every day. Now I call it breathe, move, rest, to get those joints lubricated, but there is magic in movement. There's medicine in movement. Our body needs movement, but so does our head and our heart. Meditation and contemplation, introspection, study, prayer, all of this wraps up into this idea of, can I integrate body, mind, breath, and all three layers of the mind? And then, of course, more conventionally, we have healthy eating and quality sleep. Learn something new. When we can engage in something new, we keep that edge of discomfort familiar enough so that we can continue to expand our edges and our boundaries. This is not only in terms of the intimacy with one another, but also what we think we know, what we think we understand. To support learning something new and engaging in these unfamiliar things, it's helpful to cultivate intimate friendships and to have plenty of opportunity for healthy, safe touch. We can touch ourselves, and for a briefest moment, our mind doesn't know that it's self-touch. We get the dopamine hit, we get the chemical shift in our brain. So give yourself a hug, give yourself a high five, right? Or maybe pet a dog, maybe hug a friend, a loved one, maybe book a massage. But getting healthy touch is a key way to keep ourselves in that healthy, positive, uplifting, hopeful space of inspiration. Play, one of my favorite and yet the hardest for me to learn is, how can I embrace play? Well, play is simply doing something for the joy of it. Can you embrace play as it shows up? When the dog wants to play catch, when the kid wants to do jumping jacks, or maybe just allowing yourself to smile and laugh for no reason. These are all ways to embrace play. And lastly, finding opportunities for service, to give back, to give forth, to pass on, whether we are known and we sign a check or whether we're anonymous and we do something behind closed doors. By being in service, we flex the muscles of our generosity and we create that circular energy of being able to then receive what we need as well. So we give so that we can receive. We receive so that we can give. It is as honorable to receive as it is to give. And in fact, the greatest gift that we can give is our attention. And take this one step further. Attention is just the focus of our energy on what is breath, nowness, realness, and life. It's all yoga, my friends. So here we are. What's next for Life's Work Yoga? What's next for me? I'm not clear on anything changing, but I am clear on diving deeper into these practices of inspired living, specifically in helping others to spread this teaching. In fact, I start my next generation, my next class of yoga teacher trainees this March, and we'll be sharing more about the practices of cultivating a clear plan for inspired living and what I call on-purpose living, or the writing of your life's work plan. But if this has tweaked or tickled any bone in your body, any question has come up for you, and you're ready to ask those questions and explore the possible answers and perspectives, then there may be some work for us to do together. And I would be honored to have a conversation. I call it an inspiration checkup. So check it out, connect, and let's see whether or not the next stage of our journey, we might be traveling together to see where you want to go in your inspired life. Thanks so much for allowing me to relive and retell this story. I hope that it's inspired you to get more intimate with your story and more intentional with your living. May you breathe deeply and move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. Namaste.